right, guys, how do I protect my business from legal and financial risk as I grow? This is an important one. Why? Because if you implemented some of the things that we talked about in earlier segments or earlier episodes, like trademarks and patents and getting lawyers and understanding this, and maybe going through our course that talks about virtual scaling and having a backline of people that could assist your business, like lawyers, consultants, and things like that, you need to understand that there's going to be risks. These are inevitable. You're not going to be able to get away from them. The bigger you get, the more exposure you get, the more risks you're going to have. And so proactively safeguarding your business as it grows bigger before small problems become legal or financial disasters is something that you want to actually do. Because again, if you're proactive with these things, it's better than being reactive. Because if you know and you plan for the worst, but you get the best, not too bad. But if you plan for the best and then you get punched and then legally punched and then you have something bad happen, it's a shocker. And you don't want that to happen. So if you can proactively plan for these and say a couple of things, I know I'm gonna have risk, I know I'm gonna get sued, I know I'm gonna have chargebacks, I know I'm probably gonna have somebody rip me off with anything, I know I'm probably gonna have fraud in my business, I know my website's probably gonna get hacked. Well, guess what? Those are all risks that will happen. It's just when. It's not a question of if, the question is when. But if you can provide a good baseline of understanding on this to yourself and say, this is gonna happen, I'm prepared when it happens because I've watched these videos or whatever the case may be, have your legal team behind you, you know the answers to these by watching this, then you'll say, guess what? I'm just ready for when it happens. I'm not gonna be shocked when it does, right? So growing big is going to bring exposure. Lawsuits, debt, fraud, regulatory issues. Are you going to get audited by the IRS? Probably at some point. I happened to get it early on. I was 5 years in the business and I got audited by the IRS. Bring it on, right? I have not been audited since, knock on wood, right? But these were things that I didn't even know. Now you could easily hear somebody say, hey, you got an audit, and go, this guy did something wrong. No. I went in, I opened my books for them, and guess what? I didn't have a lawyer when I did that. I should have had a lawyer. Anytime you get an inquiry from the IRS, get a lawyer, immediately, get a lawyer. Because I did the right thing and I said, hey, I'm not doing anything wrong. Here's all my stuff. Well, guess what? I didn't have a lawyer. Bam, 3-year audit from one inquiry, right? And of course they're gonna find something because the lawyer told me, look, that is an agency that's investing time, money, and resources into investigating you. They're not just gonna say, oh, you're all good to go, here, have a good day. They're going to find something, and they did. And so this can happen to you as well. EDD audits with employment, those are problems that could come up as well. So let's talk about some of these things here, right? Because key protections that you're gonna need in your business, what are they? A proper entity structure. So an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, whatever the case may be, we have videos that talk about those specifically. Having that entity structure there, you have to have that because that protects you as the business owner. That's why the business exists and why you don't just go out and do something yourself, because then you're liable. If you get sued because you did something wrong, they're coming after your personal bank accounts, your family, your personal cars, your house, all of this stuff, right? If you got a business, limited liability company, it's right in the name. Limited liability. It's limiting the liability to you as the business owner. You got insurance, you got a business, and you got business bank accounts. If you're not commingling funds, they're not going to touch your personal stuff, right? Now, the lawyers will give you more information than I will, but I'll tell you this. These are things that you need to have in mind, right? What are some others? A good operating agreement. Have an operating agreement on file. Talked about this in an earlier video. Business insurance, general liability, cybersecurity, E&O, errors and omissions. This is on the owners themselves. There's many different insurances that you can get. I have an entire video just on insurances. Maintain insurance. I pay over $30,000 a year for insurance on some of my businesses, and we have very high risk. If certain things go wrong in my business, people die. 5,000 people could die at one time within 30 seconds, right? That's a very scary metric. We have great records, impeccable records, but at the same time, the insurance has to be there. Employer insurance, E&O insurance, general liability. I have professional liability for certain things that I design that are going in certain places that require engineers, architects, and me as the designer. And I'm doing certain things there. That's different than manufacturing general liability, which general liability is the general liability of your business. All of it's different. There's insurance codes that they have, and those insurance codes will come over to your business on what you do, what your operations are, what your revenues are, things like that. So all of this, there's an entire video we have on insurance. Watch it. Definitely do not operate a business without insurance. I would tell you right now, that is like throwing darts at your best friend's face in the dark. It's just, you're gonna hit your best friend at some point, right? Or maybe your best friend throwing darts at you. You're gonna get hit, it's just when. Have the insurance. Solid contracts, NDAs, all of this. We talked about that in earlier videos as well. Clients, vendors, employees, NDAs, new business, you want solid contracts. And we talk about this in our group. Link below, or if you're on chriscraze.com, we have links there. We have programs that talk about this, our virtual scaling accelerator, our veteran systems program, and ultimately we have groups in our school group, and we have different videos in our school group, I should say, that talk about some of this, to show you how to do good contracts, build some good contracts, and then get them reviewed by professionals that are there so that you have something to substantiate your business, and it's for a fraction of the price. If you go to a lawyer and you go to a law firm, they're gonna charge you a retainer, they're gonna charge you money, right? Thousands of dollars. We're talking about hundreds of dollars here instead of thousands. So that's why it's beneficial. Join our group. Shameless plug. Now, always document important transactions and agreements. I do this in everything I do. I make sure that it's in writing. I make sure that all my calls are recorded, that the people know the calls are recorded, and I just say, hey, it's for quality assurance. The iPhones now, you can hit the record button and it says this call is being recorded. Just let people know, hey, I'm gonna record the call because you know, I wanna come back, I wanna be in the moment with the call, and then I can come back and review any notes later so I'm not taking notes. I do the same with Zoom calls. And the funny thing is this, typically, and for the majority of people, within 5 seconds, 10 seconds after the call, they forgot that it's even being recorded anyways. So you're gonna get almost raw details from people regardless of what the call is. It's good to have it on file. If you can't record the call, what I do is I always go back, I get right off the call, and I will email the person, hey, thanks for the call, recapping everything that we talked about here so I don't forget anything. Please correct me if I need anything updated or if I left anything out. And then I just do a bullet list line of items so that it's there. It's time-stamped. Why? Because we talked about this in earlier videos. And ultimately it comes down to this. If 5 years from now, there was a discrepancy or a dispute about what was said or what was done or how somebody acted, and you have your side of the story, they have their side of the story, and then you go, yeah, but this is what we talked about. Well, nobody knows what the facts are and what actually happened. But if you sent the email, if you had it in a contract, if it was in writing, they know. That's what you agreed on, and it's right there in writing, or it's right there in an email, and they had the chance to add or alter or do anything else, update what was talked about, and it's there. So there's no discrepancy about what happened, right? Document everything. Be the document king, the document queen, whatever you want to call yourself. Make sure everything is documented, right? Especially important transactions and agreements. So have legal counsel available, even if it's part-time. This is a major one, and we actually started the virtual scaling system in part because of this, because I have a plethora of lawyers behind me, NFL contract attorneys, I have patent attorneys that have done 30,000 patents. You know, they work with major Fortune 50 companies. I have obviously legal counsel in the real estate space. I have legal counsel as a general business counsel. I have other trademark attorneys that handle only my trademarks. I have certain attorneys that do other things like litigate for me if I need to have certain litigation or ask them what would be required in litigation. So IRS attorneys, I have accounting attorneys. So, and you probably are like, oh my God, this guy pays so much money for attorneys. Well, the average person thinks that, right? But realistically, I'm paying these people by the 15-minute, 6-minute, or hour blocks, and I'm not doing retainers. And we talk about all this in the virtual scaling system that we have, the virtual scaling accelerator, how to get a backline of people that work for you that you can call on as needed, that can advise you as needed, and you're only getting charged that amount of time when you work with them, because you need to have these people in your corner. Because if you try to go out and you get an attorney and ask them one question on something, but then you ask another attorney a question on something else, it's the same matter. You're repeating the story and you're paying double the time. You want to have some attorneys in your corner that they understand a little bit more about the business. You have an onboarding call with them. You pay for an hour at a time. You let them know what's going on, what your question is, what the background information is, and then ultimately they're there to advise you along every step of the way. Certain attorneys I have for certain projects. Certain attorneys are for certain businesses. They're not involved in other businesses. Certain attorneys know certain things that others don't in specific industries. You will need attorneys. The question is when. It's better to have them now and not need them and refer to them and call on them as needed than it is to be in a situation where now you're effed, right? Don't be in that situation. So always document, have the legal counsel available, and also set up proper accounting systems. Accounting, if you do not do this right, will get you in the biggest trouble. Clean books, easy profit and loss, easy cash flow statement. If you don't know what these are, then you should probably understand these by now. We'll probably put other videos on here about that, but these are things that you should have, and you need to have these available. QuickBooks, all the transactions recorded, everything documented. I talked about saving things a couple of videos ago, I believe in the last series. Have this available. I mean, being able to recall on something in a moment's notice shows a lot of power, a lot of strength, and a lot of authority in you. And I know where all my stuff is at every step of the way. So if I get asked for bank accounts or agreements or anything else, I could send that to somebody within a couple minutes. You should be able to do the same thing, because the faster you do that, the less time you're spending looking for things and it looks like you're unorganized at that point. So understand tax obligations as you scale. Higher tax obligations, higher tax brackets. CPA is going to give you a certain thing, right? They're going to be your certified professional accountant. They're going to know certain things. A tax strategist may know a little bit more than them, so it's best to have both. You might have somebody else that knows a lot more, like a consultant that's not a tax strategist and that's not a CPA, but they know a lot more about the tax system and they're a consultant. Look at options between all of them, because I get a flat rate on some of my accounting and some of my bookkeeping, and my accountant, who's a fraud examiner and a certified, a fraud examiner and there's another certification that he handles with taxes, and he worked for 2 state governments. He's great, but on the tax strategy side, there's somebody else that can help a little bit better, and they know some higher level strategies that I can bring into the business overall on a bigger landscape. You could do the same thing when you get to that point, right? Right people, right things, and right understanding on what their knowledge is and what their scope of work would be. So understanding tax obligations, obviously protect your intellectual property. You don't want to be lax on that, I can tell you that. So protect intellectual property as the brand grows. What I have is I have a company that owns all of my intellectual property, and they own the patents, they own the trademarks, they own all the copyrights, they own it all. So I pay royalties over to this company. The company may or may not be in the United States. That's a whole nother higher level strategy, and this is something that you could look at down the road in business as well. So the key takeaway for this video is going to be this: protecting what you build is just as important as building it. You know, there's building, which is creating, but there's managing. It's like a slinky. You're going to build, but you have to set time aside for managing it and making sure everything is on the up and up, so that you don't get caught with your hands in the cookie jar. We'll keep it PG-13. On the next video, should I focus more on profit, revenue, market share, or something else at this stage? I'll see you on the next one.